New York's classic rock, Q1043.
Kevin Smith, yes, the Kevin Smith, creator of Clerks, is with us this morning. Now, a little backstory here. Kevin is on the advisory council of Friends of Firefighters, a recent joinee. I am pretty recently added to the board of directors of Friends of Firefighters. Now, this is a wonderful organization that provides free, confidential mental health counseling and wellness for FDNYers, retired, current, and their families. It's an extraordinary organization, and Kevin has an event coming up this Friday at 8 at his Smod Castle in Leonardo. You can go in person or you can join on his podcast, and the evening is called Being Buscemi and Eve with Steve. Yes, that's Steve Buscemi. So first of all, welcome. I'm so glad we're both working for the same organization and that you made time for us. And how did this all happen?
It's a great organization, isn't it? At the end of the day, They do so much, but chiefly, firefighters tend to be very tough individuals. It takes a lot of courage and guts and fearlessness to race into a burning building and whatnot. But, as much courage and fearlessness as they have, sometimes it's very hard for people to share when they have a problem. There are firefighters that have a hard time telling people that they need help, that they're struggling personally. And so Friends of Firefighters is an organization that was started in the wake of the events of September 11th that kind of looks after those who look after us. Be there for our first responders the way that they're there for us when they're needed. So we came up with the fundraiser because Steve Buscemi, of course, famously before he was well known as one of the most legendary character actors in business, was a firefighter, and on September 11th lent a hand with his local ledger, I believe, while things were going on. So he's been involved with the organization forever. I met him while we were doing a Sopranos read along or a benefit for the Friends of Firefighters. And so they asked me, Nancy Carbone asked me if I wanted to join the organization. I was like, I'm so into this. And here we are. So we came up with this Being Buscemi and Eve with Steve, where we're going to be at Smod Castle, my little theater in New Jersey. And it's only a 48-seater, very, very small. And we'll be streaming it on my YouTube channel. And then, of course, raising donations throughout the evening. And I'm just going to sit there and deep dive with a legend, with an icon, and figure out how he got from a dream to the iconic status that he has. How he met all the filmmakers that he continues to work with to this day, how he became a filmmaker himself, how he has a life outside of film, and Friends of Firefighters is a big part of that. So it's going to be a wonderful evening, me sitting there talking to Steve Buscemi. And if you can't be there in person, people can watch along online at youtube.com/Kevin Smith. And then donate to Friends of Firefighters, which, like I said, 20th anniversary this year. So it's a big deal.
So you can get tickets at friendsoffirefighters.org. And so you could be there in person, as Kevin just said, or you can join the podcast, and that is smodcast.com. Now, I don't know if you know this, Kevin. Steve told me he worked on the pile for about 6 days, I believe. Mm-hmm. And he was shocked by what happened to his mental health afterwards. And just think of this. He was only there for 6 days. There were firefighters and police officers and volunteers who were there for 8 months. This just happened after 6 days, which is why he became involved with Friends of Firefighters. So you're going to get some extraordinary stories. And the other interesting thing about him is that he was a firefighter in the 80s, right? And he takes this leave of absence to give it a go as an actor. And he keeps extending his leave of absence. I mean, it's just amazing. And it's amazing that you are doing this. I mean, I'm just thrilled because it's all for a good cause. Okay, question. You wrapped the filming of Clerks 3, right?
Yeah, we just wrapped on Tuesday at midnight. So we had a 22-day shoot here in New Jersey. I'm still in New Jersey right now. And that's the first time I was able to shoot an entire movie in New Jersey since the very first movie. We never left. We were always within like 20-minute radius of the Quick Stop, which was, of course, our mainstay, our hub. And it was bliss. I'm telling you, we started shooting on my 51st birthday. So it was a great gift to myself, a little trip back in time, because the plot is about very close to real life. Quite like me, a few years ago, I had a massive heart attack and then kind of pulled through and whatnot. One of our main characters also has a massive heart attack and decides that life is so short and he wants to memorialize himself. So he decides to make a movie about working at the convenience store. So essentially, our clerks make clerks. So all summer long, I've been doing this like deep dive into the past. Not only was I at Quick Stop, where I, used to work, where we shot the movie, but before I shot the movie there, I just worked there for years and whatnot. So I was working at Quick Stop again for the first time in like 30 years. But we were recreating key moments from Clerks in black and white, like over and over, framing them against video, of course, that we could pull from YouTube and whatnot. So it was a lot of people my age go through midlife crises and whatnot, and they try to kind of return to their past. Lionsgate paid for my return to the past, my midlife crisis. It was awesome, man. It was like going to fantasy camp, Kevin Smith fantasy camp, where you just went back in time and worked at Quick Stop and remade the movie that changed your life. It was absolutely wonderful. Such a great way to spend the summer.
What happened to you was so freaky. I mean, a massive heart attack, the kind they call the Widowmaker, where it was 100% blocked. Did you have any kind of near-death experience? Do you remember what you were thinking when all this was happening?
Oh, absolutely. See, and I don't know if this was because it was suggested by my mother, but my mother had a legit near-death experience where they lost her on the table. Her heart stopped for something like 1 minute 12 seconds or something like that. Real long time, where they were like, "We got to get her back." So I remember I asked my mom a long time ago. I was like, "Ma, you have been to both places, man. You've been in the land of the living, and you've also been over to the other side." I said, "Which is better?" And my mom said, without hesitation, my mother was like, "The other side." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You were only there for like 1 minute and 12 seconds." She's like, "I've never known such peace." She's like, "Every weight in the world was lifted off my shoulders. All my responsibilities were over." She's like, "I felt lighter than hell." And she was talking about seeing the long figures and whatnot, but like, you can always chalk that up to biology and science in terms of what light one is seeing. Most people refer to it as the light of heaven, but it tends to be the hospital light, the overhead light when you're in a surgery room. So my mother had suggested to me something like that long before I had a heart attack. When I Widowmaker, the doctor told me, he's just like, "You got 100% occlusion in the LAD." And he told me that it's like, this heart attack has a name. It's called the Widowmaker. And because in 80% of the cases where the patient has 100% occlusion, the patient always dies. He's going, "But you're going to be in the 20% because like I'm great at my job." And he disappeared into my crotch and made magic. That's how they save you, man. They cut into your groin and go up to your heart. It's nuts. So while the dude was sitting there working on me, making magic in my crotch and stuff like that, I was thinking like, oh my God, 20% chances of living. Like, that's nuts. I was figuring I got 50-50 walking out in the street any given day, but like 20% chance walking out of this room is the worst odds I've ever heard in my life. So I started making peace with the fact that I was not going to walk out of that room. And I started thinking about my entire life, and I went back to the beginning, thought about my parents quite a bit and, how I got here, not just by them having sex naturally, but also like way they raised me, my brother and sister. We were raised in a house of love. My parents really appreciated their kids. My old man, I asked him one point, I said, "Dad, what were your dreams?" Like when Clerks was happening for me, I was like, "What were your dreams?" And he was like, "I just wanted to get married and have kids." And like, so his dream happened for him at such an early age. And he was so focused on his kids, and as was my mom. So we had this wonderful upbringing and a real familial. And then I had wonderful friends and people that I grew up with. And then I'd had this wacky, great career and got married, had a kid, like did all the things you're supposed to do. and also did them at 11, got to do things a lot of people don't get to do. So I really made peace with the fact that I wasn't leaving that room. And I was like, you know what? Like, if this is it, like, you can't complain. Yes, you're only 47 years old, but what a life that you've lived, man. Everything was so wonderful. And you got, heaping servings of things. Some people barely get portions, and you ate well in this life, so well that you're dying of a heart attack right now. Probably ate too well, as a matter of fact. But at the end of the day, I was like, you were so blessed. Like, if this is the end, don't struggle, don't fight. Some people were like, did you pray to God? I was like, I thought that'd be useless. I thought God would be like, you made dogma, you could rot in hell. So I didn't want to presume upon that fantasy relationship anyway in the first place. So, I made peace with the fact that I was like, this is it. And if this is it, I was like, just, push back from the table, be grateful. I felt nothing but gratitude. And I was fully in acceptance of the fact that my life was going to end in that room. And it wasn't like a death wish. I wasn't emo or goth where I was like, yeah, I want to die. But I was, for the first time in my life, death had scared me forever and always been the enemy, repugnant when you're in the creative arts, right? Because you're like, oh my God, how could I possibly die? Who will make Clerks movies when I'm dead? I can't possibly die. So like here, I suddenly made peace with the idea that I was going to die. I was like, oh my God, I get it now. You know what it felt like to me? High school graduation. I remember I had this distinct feeling where I was like, oh, I get it now. This is like graduating from high school. Like high school was so wonderful and fun. But at the end of the day, you just have to matriculate. Like you got to move on. Like you can't just be here. Unfortunately, life goes in one direction and it tends toward the death side at the end of it. So this is the way, as they say in The Mandalorian. This is the natural order of things. Accept it, man. Don't be like the last guy at the party who's like, you got any more beer? I want to stick around. Like gracefully leave to say thank you and head off. So I was prepared. I was ready to die, like fully in acceptance. And then Dr. Leidenheim, son of a bitch, he saved my life. So then I had to go on living after that. Can you imagine reaching total Zen where you're like, you know what? I accept that I could die and I will die now. And then somebody saves you. And then you're like, now I got to stick around and make like Clerks 3, Mallrats 2. Oh, well. But I knew that peace. And I don't know if it was because I truly felt it or because my mother had suggested it in a conversation that we'd had years before. But I felt that lightness where I was like, oh my God, I'm off the hook. Like I don't have to do this. I don't have to come up with another thing. I don't have to top the last movie. I don't have to pay bills. Like there was suddenly this feeling of like, oh, like it's not all bad. Like, yeah, it sucks to leave the party early at any age or leave the party at all because we know this world. We don't know what's after this. I said, but like at the end of the day, I kind of felt, all right, well, yeah, there's a downside, but there's an upside. The upside was like, I don't have to ever exercise again. Like I'm done with that nonsense. Like I was finished. And then Dr. Leidenheim made it that I had to exercise a lot. So I started exercising more. I went vegan. I lost like 75, 80 pounds at that point.
Wow.
So yeah. So it was honestly, a heart attack is the best thing that ever happened to me. Not only did it save my life, but it changed my life and it gave me a plot for Clerks 3. Otherwise,
Right. I was just going to say that. And when's it coming out? When's the release date? Do you have one?
Not yet. We just finished shooting, so Lionsgate will make that decision once we show them the movie. I figure I'll have the first cut of the movie done by the end of the month, the latest and stuff. So definitely next year.
Okay. But in the meantime, you can join Kevin Smith, an evening called Being Buscemi and Eve with Steve. It's coming up this Friday night at 8. You can join in person. You could be there at Smod Castle in Leonardo, or you can join virtually. And please donate something to help FDNYers who need this free mental health wellness provided by Friends of Firefighters. So you can get tickets, friendsoffirefighters.org, and you can join the podcast. If you can't be there in person, please do. It's going to be great. smodcast.com. Anything else, Kev?
Yeah. Or send them to youtube.com/Kevin Smith. It'll probably live stream from there. Smodcast will get them there as well.
Okay. Anything else?
All good. All good. Kids, you need anything else from me?
No, I want you to stay alive. I'm so
feel like
glad
I talked a lot about myself.
That was fantastic, though, because, dealing with 9/11, you think of those things. By the way, where were you on 9/11?
On September November 11th, I was in Los Angeles. I was I'm called me. We had just released Jane Strike Back. We made the movie out in Los Angeles. We were supposed to make the movie and then come home to edit and post-production the movie. Instead, we wound up staying out in Los Angeles the whole time. Then the movie premiered, then the movie came out. So we were there the whole time. We were packed and getting ready to come home. And I remember that morning, the phone rang, early for us. And it was my mother. And my mother was like, wake up, we're under attack. We're under attack. They went after the towers. I turned on the TV, and that view that I'd seen every single day in my life, because I in Jersey, right on the water by a lot of people call Gateway National Park, we call Sandy Hook. So my view of the Manhattan skyline is better than anyone who lived in Manhattan. I saw it every morning of my life growing up. And all of a sudden there I saw it on TV in a far more horrifying way than I'd ever seen it before. So, it was weird being on the other side of the country while it went on. But I was in close contact with my friends out there. Brian Johnson, Walter Flanagan, and my friends who were on comic book years and years. They picked up people from the ferries who had never been in Highlands, didn't mean to be there. It was just because of the events of that day. And so they were relating on a regular basis, like what was going on back home. Horrifying. When I got back to the area, I worked on the benefit that we did at the Count Basie Theater, where Bruce was there and a bunch of people. We raised a bunch of money because a lot of folks who live in Monmouth County were directly affected. A lot of people who worked in the financial industry. So yeah, I remember that morning. I remember being glued to the TV for the next 3 days.
Well, thank you for what you are doing with Friends of Firefighters. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you. We look forward to Clerks 3. We need to laugh. We need to laugh.
We will. It's a movie that starts with a heart attack, but we wring all the laughs we can out of a bad situation.
And a crotch shot, right?
Yes, lots of crotch shots.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. You too. Thanks for making the time.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.